Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the May 26th edition of Partner First. Yeah, I am completely socially awkward. I am not ready to go out into the public. Please forgive me. But we do have an amazing episode today. We're going to be covering something that is the bane of every IT person's existence: automated deployments, so you don't have to worry about unboxing, unpacking, typing in a bunch of registration and all that nonsense. There's a better way. And I learned that from a sommelier. I learned that that finishing a PC is a celebratory experience, and you should cap it off with a nice cuvee, which is a champagne that I totally didn't just Google right now. But as we get started, I want to welcome to the episode Mr. Darren Kattan of ImmyBot. Darren, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, man. Good. I love the background. You got flowers. You got Barney. You got a guitar.
Oh, man.
Is that a piglet?
This wall is insane. My wife did a summer camp and she drew, and all the kids drew all this stuff. This was like a band room for a little while, and then she commandeered it. So you can see it's got a little bit of music and art, but she's an art teacher and she does all kinds of cool stuff with kids. So yeah, you can see a little bit of that here.
I don't know about you, but that's completely unfair to me. My wife is she used to be a preschool teacher many years. She's good at drawing on the board. She actually draws personally, and she has these amazing skills, like bringing these drawings to life. Meanwhile, my stick figures are horribly disfigured. So it is not fun. We do like cinnamon houses, right? Like the gingerbread houses for Christmas, and hers and my son look beautiful, like Martha Stewart would be jealous, and then mine looks like it should have been demolished some time ago.
It makes it easy when she's got that handled. I don't have to think about it, right? Like I've got the computer, the left brain stuff handled. She's got,
go.
It's perfect.
It's a nice thing, and let's be honest, we could all use some instructors and caregivers in our lives. Oh, look at that! Well, Mr. Kelvin Tahalar, which I've been told is the correct pronunciation for all Dutch things. Congratulating you on your swag. I do love that the Emmy Bot there, man.
Oh yeah, we sent everybody some stuff. We're working on USBs. It turns out it's actually cheaper to buy a USB that has both USB-C and USB-A on it.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, let's just see if it would, what the cost difference would be. And it was $1 cheaper a unit. So now we're getting those made because a lot of new computers don't even have the USB-A connector anymore. So I was like, well, we have to have both, So I'm excited. So that's going to be the next round of swag.
I love it. And we all know you're not an established business until you have swag. I mean, right. That's the way it goes. Yeah. So why don't you tell us about yourself? Tell us about Emmy a little bit before we get started.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Darren. We started building ImmyBot about 2016. It was basically after I went to Automation Nation and realized that I was writing the same scripts as everyone else was to try to get software deployed with Automate. And man, it was painful just to hear people are telling these battle stories. And I'm like, what a collective waste of time that all of us have spent 8 hours writing an Office 365 install script, right? Like, how is this not a solved problem already? And it really inspired me to try to really build a tool that was actually easy to share automation with and used a modern language sort of built on all the newer frameworks that we have at our disposal nowadays. And now we're here. So we officially launched it last August, and it is really a godsend for setting up new computers. It's you'll see some new stuff that I haven't even shown the channel yet today, and it's going to make it really cool to keep up with all the changes that are happening in Emmy because we're constantly improving it.
Not to jump the shark, not to give it away early, but you guys have been going gangbusters. It's like left and right, nonstop. Here's a new feature. Somebody says, "Oh, can you do this?" And you're like, "I got you." And 24 hours, 36 hours later, don't expect this, guys. Like, don't say Ray said that you give me new features in 24 hours. But it is kind of amazing how quickly you're putting stuff out, right?
Well, here's the thing. It's what I tell people is, as I say, it's almost like we use the tool ourselves in our MSP. I think a lot of the RMM vendors have gotten so far away from the day-to-day of IT. It's not just about building the platform. It's about having stuff in it that your customers actually need. So when people in the channel are like, oh, Darren, can you package QuickBooks, or can you package Revit or AutoCAD or all of this stuff? I'm like, yeah, actually, I've got a ticket open on my board over here that somebody needs to package that. So I'll solve your problem and this other problem here.
And that's kind of one of the things we're missing, right? Like we have MSP Geek, which is phenomenal, which you're super active on MSP Geek, and you have Emmy has its own channel, but you're active all over the place. But we have Reddit, we have Slack, we have Discord, we have all these groups now, and everybody is sharing what they're doing. But you've consolidated this place where you're not only saying we can make this repeatable, we have these things, but you can share with others in the community. It's phenomenal, and deploy quickly, right? Because it's not let me get this into my script, this into my RMM, convert it from Kaseya to Kaseya. I know I say it wrong, and to, enable and to, automate. You have this because you use the magical, wonderful world of PowerShell.
Right.
It's ubiquitous, and it's easily understandable from any IT person that's been doing this for a while, right? It's pretty easy.
Right. Even guys who are coming from SCCM love it, because we do a lot of the heavy lifting of analyzing the installer. Oh, it was an NSYS. Here's a script that usually works with that. We just get you so much further ahead, even if you do have to custom package something. And it's a sane language, So I don't know. I'm excited.
I'm looking at the chat. I'm trying to say it. Nobody asked you, Sean. Whatchamacallit. But I'm looking to see in the chat, because you mentioned something that is the bane of everyone's existence. You mentioned QuickBooks, and I'm looking to see. I guess nobody caught it in the chat, but yeah, I mean, because QuickBooks cannot be automated in any fashion to install. I mean, that's absolute BS, right?
Well, that's what I thought after I spent countless hours working on it. But luckily, I've got our friend Dimitri, who hangs out in the channel, and he took the work that I had done and figured out how to make it work. And there were some gotchas there. It was not easy, but he found a trick. No, they don't make it easy at all, but it is possible to do. And now he's working on making it such that it could even import and begin the transformation of the previous company file to the new updated version. That was a challenge that one of the users experienced this week. So that's going to be a new addition to that.
So go ahead and buy today. The link is down below. If that's not the reason, if that's not the reason right there, I know I have spent more than a few $100s wasting time on trying to figure out how to automate the installation of QuickBooks, without question.
Oh yeah, and that's not even the hardest thing we do. So right now, I've got a lot of people who are wanting to install the latest AutoCAD or Autodesk products. Things like Revit are like 10 gigs. Well, I've now got a script in Emmy that I've successfully used against Inventor and AutoCAD Mechanical and regular AutoCAD and all this. It's a single script that works with all of them and installs them with the parameters that you would otherwise need to specify the license server and the serial numbers and all of that. But what's really neat about that is we're implementing branch cache on the endpoints, even if you don't have an enterprise SKU. So if you're trying to push to AutoCAD or Inventor, which is like 10 gigs, you don't want to clog that pipe, right? That internet connection, because traditionally with RMMs, you either have to put it on a Samba share and then embed credentials to grab the thing. Well, what we're doing is we're using the built-in branch cache for bits, and we're saying, hey, look, if you get access up here on the network using this broadcast, it'll respond back. Here's the content you're looking for. And now the more people that have a copy of this stuff, the faster it ends up on the machines. It's awesome. So we've already implemented that for the Windows 10 feature updates. So you'll see that when it goes to download, it starts increasing in speed on each computer the more that they get it. It breaks up into these like 4 meg chunks, and you don't have to embed any credentials or make any Samba shares or preload. Then it's all just done.
So you made a torrent server out of the client network, basically.
Right, but it's built into Windows, so like Sentinel-1 isn't going to freak out because it's a built-in Windows feature.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Right. And I put Chris's comment on here. I've coined a phrase that always stood true: "Ain't nothing quick about QuickBooks until now."
Well,
we are I just want to do some housekeeping real quick. This is recorded. This is live immediately after we're finished. So, you guys can go see it, and we will absolutely do Q&A at the end. Go ahead and throw your questions in. We'll get to them, but feel free to jump them in. Darren, while I read this, if you could, I think Simon sent you something in the private chat. if you can correct real quick. Are you guys keeping these packages updated? We just deployed Adigi. I love their app library. They keep updated for you. Would be great to not have to repackage Zoom every month in Automate.
Oh, yeah, excellent. So that is a new initiative of what we're doing. Yes, we are adding. We currently have it enabled for Adobe Reader, Acrobat, Teams, a handful of others. But essentially, what I'm looking at is what are the most popular packages, third-party stuff that people are using, and we're going out and figuring out where those download URLs are. Where do you get the latest version? How do you patch it? So, long story short, you won't need to repackage that stuff anymore. And if there is something custom, we have an auto update script that runs every week inside of Emmy that will allow you to add the new versions as they come out yourself. So it is possible to automate that if it is something that's not like mainstream.
Nice. So without much further ado, I think we should dive into we're going to do a quick presentation. It's not going to be death by PowerPoint. We promise we'll keep it very collaborative. And then we're going to do a live demonstration of Emmy and get to the Q&A. So Simon, if you want to bring up the PowerPoint slides here, and I'll let you get to it, Darren.
Perfect. All right. So when you're setting up a new computer, you should be asking yourself this question. What should I name the computer? Should it be joined to a domain or Azure AD? Can I join it to the domain over a VPN? What VPN client should I use? What are the VPN profile settings? What's the name of the domain? What credentials can I use to join it to the domain? What edition of Office should I install, Pro Plus or Business? Or now it's, Enterprise or Apps for Business, right? What other Microsoft do they need? Do they need Visio? Do they need Project? Do they need any Outlook plugins, maybe for spam filtering or email encryption? What line of business software do they need? Where's the installer for that software? Can I download it from the vendor's website, or are they only licensed up to a specific version? Do we have a copy of it on our network, or is it on theirs? Where's the license for that software? Is it a network license? What PDF viewer or editor should I install? What browser should I install? Do they have an old computer? Is this new user replacing someone else? What was the person? Who was that person, and where is that computer? Do I need to migrate application-specific settings from that old computer? What other software is on that computer? Do they use all that stuff? Should I make them a local admin so they can install anything that I missed? Right?
And then you got to do it again every new computer, every new client,
every day. And so so you could try to make a checklist, but you'll end up with this really just depends on what. Is that guy an accountant? Is he in finance, or is he an engineer? Okay, maybe that'll dictate what accounting package he gets or what license he gets for the PDF editor, right? There's so many it depends scenarios that your checklist starts looking like a family tree. It's like, well, if this, then that, and there's got to be a better way that you could essentially build dynamically the checklist based on policies. So ImmyBot is really as I designed it similar to group policy in that maybe for all computers you install Reader, but maybe for people who have a Apps for Business license in their 365 subscription, they get that. And if they have a Project license, then yes, we're going to install Project for them. Yes, they have a Visio license, we're going to install. We try to reach back to whatever the source of truth is to figure out whether or not somebody should have software and what settings they should get. Right. And I
want to stop here because that's kind of a big deal, right? We're not talking about, okay, well, everybody's going to get, and we used to do this, don't judge me. We used to do this very early on, and I'm talking early, like 2009, 2010, where, all new computers would get RMM install, they'd get Ninite install, and then we'd start deploying stuff specific to the client, right?
Right.
You're saying, okay, we can dynamically per client have these selections made so it's smart enough to do it in one shot.
Right. And it will even reach back into ConnectWise Manage to look at their agreement, and we could deploy software based on what products are on their agreement. So, or the type of agreement they have, right? So if somebody has just signed up for your new managed security agreement, and with that, you're including SentinelOne or you're including Huntress, okay, well, fine. You're going to assign SentinelOne or Huntress to that product. And when we see that product is on the agreement, we install it on that computer, right?
Yeah, which is amazing. I mean, we've all been through, I'm old school Automate, and I used N Central before that. But like on the Automate side, it's EDF hell, right? When you're writing your scripts, you have thousands and thousands. And I'm not exaggerating. Like I wish Quentin was in the chat because I know he'd be screaming to the top of his lungs. And I know he's an Emmy fan too. But like, you're making all these EDFs for what if this, what if that, blah, blah. and you're getting it from, which I think should be the source of truth, the billing arrangement for the client.
Precisely. And here's the other thing. A lot of people use EDFs to attempt to exclude certain computers from getting certain things, right? Which works in some cases, but like maybe it's a CNC machine or something like that. Okay, yeah, that maybe shouldn't have certain things and that works. But what about users who have a specific preference for Chrome versus Edge or things like that? Well, if you put an EDF on the computer, well, guess what? You set up a new computer for that guy, the EDF is no longer there. Right? So at best, you could like remember what his old computer was, look at what the EDF settings are and try to replicate it on the new one. Why not assign those preferences to the person, and why not get their identity from 365 as the source of truth and say, yeah, this person, or he's in this group of users, they don't get this software. Maybe it's a lawyer that doesn't want Adobe Reader because the lawyers always get Acrobat Pro, right? So you can set that up, and that way next time you set up a computer for a lawyer at that law firm, he's going to just get Acrobat and you don't have to worry about removing Reader or whatever.
Which is pretty damn amazing. I love that. I mean, it makes it so much easier, so much more repeatable. I mean, we're talking basically almost like desired state configuration, right? But like with a lot more intelligence and a lot easier to deploy. Let's be honest.
Right.
Sorry, Kelvin. I know you're a fan of DSE, but actually, we have a question here. Only ConnectWise.
So it depends on what you're trying to do. We do integrate with ConnectWise, manage, control, and automate, but that doesn't stop you from using Emmy. We have a lot of users that use Datto RMM or N-Central, and the Emmy just installs the N-Central agent for them, or the Datto RMM agent. So what you'll see in a moment is how we have our own agent that would get installed on the computer at the very beginning, and then we install the rest of the stuff for you.
Right. You're not locked to having to use a PSA or an RMM. It's not, it's a choice to make your life better, but it's not a hard requirement.
Exactly. And our agent is infinitely faster than those agents also, because it's all built on the Azure IoT Hub. It's all asynchronous. It's insanely fast.
So I'm going to, I warned you, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hard time. I'm going to ask you the hard questions. We have an RMM. There's Microsoft Intune, which we know, is going to replace all RMMs across the globe. That's sarcasm. Please don't hold me to that. But Intune does deployment of packages. RMM should do deployments of packages. Why is Emmy better? Or does this replace it? I mean, you already said it works in sync with it. Why is Emmy better? Why should I be using it?
The main problem with Intune is when you set up Intune for your client, there are no apps inside of it at all. So you have to start from an empty slate. So if you have 50 customers and they all get Intune as part of M365 Business Premium that you should be pushing to your customers anyway, well, that's nice and all, but what software is in it? Nothing. So you need Reader in there, you need all of this stuff, and then you're finding yourself setting that up like 50 times. And yes, there are solutions out there that will allow you to either push to multiple or synchronize one Intune tenant to the next, and you're seeing more of that. Or you may argue, oh, well, we could just use Chocolatey to do that, and we do integrate with Chocolatey also. But you don't have that single click cross tenant, everyone gets this, period. Instead, you're manually updating SentinelOne's installer in 50 Intune tenants every month, right? That's the biggest problem. Now, maybe one day Microsoft will come to the table and actually allow some reasonable cross-tenant management and cross-tenant policies for Intune. But right now, the best we can get is third-party solutions that synchronize those settings or synchronize those apps, which I haven't had any experience with, but I think my way's better.
I love it. I love it. Okay, what's next?
Oh man. So what's the next one? Well, I was going to run through this presentation, right? Like what I had done is taken like the first few steps into setting up a computer, because there's some things here that are very nuanced and it's going to appeal to people. So right here, what should I name the computer? That was the first question we asked. And right here, I'm showing how you can have a template, first initial, last name. Those values come from Azure AD. Form factor short has an abbreviation. Those are overridable. Most people use like LT instead of LPTP like we use internally. But one of the coolest things is you can put pound signs on here, and it will actually reach, if you tell it this should be joined to a domain, it will actually reach back out to the domain controller, find a computer that matches that template, and say, computers 001 through 5 already exist, it's smart enough to grab 006 in line, saving you that trouble of screen connecting into the domain controller, opening up Active Directory, trying to find the computers that are, trying to find that next computer in line. It just does that for you. So right there, people who use that sort of computer name convention, that brings a lot of value.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And when it comes to, should we be joined to a domain or Azure AD, we're in this weird transition phase. There's a lot of people still doing on-prem stuff, but there's also a lot of people that are just going straight Azure AD. And we're kind of in the midst of that with our MSP also. So right here, when you look at these preferences, you can say, okay, yes, maybe this customer specifically, we've gone all the way and we've done Azure AD for them. Well, you would just deploy this join Azure AD task to it, and we programmatically join it to Azure AD for you. So you don't have to go to the computer and manually do that. Or if it's still somebody who is doing an on-prem old school, no problem, should be domain join. We reach out and we do an offline domain join by just running that djoin utility off the domain controller and feeding the token back into the computer. So you don't need to set up a VPN connection. So that eliminates like 6 of the questions from my first rant.
I love that. I love that. It's awesome.
But since I mentioned VPN stuff, I should also mention that I've taken the time to package up a lot of really common VPN clients. So apparently apparently a lot of people use SonicWall. We're a FortiClient shop, whatever, but more people that I realized use that. So I took the time to get SonicWall packaged. And not only did I package it, but I made it such that you can deploy the VPN settings, because to me, if you're not going to configure the VPN for the end user, you might as well not even install it. It's not functional for them. So
as a lifelong SonicWall user, and I tell people all the time, I got my CCIE just so I could deploy SonicWall. But as a lifelong SonicWall user, I can say that anybody who's used NetExtender knows you have to deploy it often and frequently because it breaks and you have to uninstall and reinstall. So having an automated way to do that is fantastic.
Right. Yeah. And there is a repair feature where you can set a repair mode. Do you want it to uninstall and reinstall? Do you want it to install over? And there's a repair button on the computer screen. So if you take that call from the customer and their VPN is messed up, you just press repair, it'll uninstall, reinstall, and then reapply the profile settings. And that's true of all of these.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah. And then when we're talking about the Office products, we inside of Emmy, I want to talk about the scripting engine for a minute. I call our scripting engine meta scripting because it's a script that can run scripts. The idea here, Meraki VPN uses OpenVPN, and that one is in there. I see somebody asking about that. So inside of our, I don't know about the Sonic walls in VoIP. I don't use them.
Hold on, because Mr. Faxporn, if you don't want me to unveil and your identity, Sonic walls work just fine. They've invited me to speak at conferences specifically to that effect. So move along.
Look, FortiGates have their own VoIP problems too, but you're the expert on that. I'll defer to you next time I need to fix a jitter issue. So in this screen, what you're getting a glimpse of is, this is PowerShell, but this is PowerShell that actually is running in the back end of Emmy, which allows us to inject our own custom commandlets. The first one at the very top, you'll see the Emmy Azure auth header. Since we're integrated with Azure from the get-go, we're able to go and grab a bearer token and put it into that header object so we can query the Graph API for the user's license details. So on that onboarding form, we ask you 2 questions. What customer is this for and what user at that customer? And because we have that user synchronized from Azure AD, we know their principal ID and we can query that right here in the script engine. So what we're doing is we're just matching on whatever the software is. So if they have that license for apps for business, it's going to get added. And in this particular case, I've got a Visio license. So it installed Visio, but it didn't try to install apps for enterprise or didn't try to install projects. I don't have licenses for those things. So that's a big time saver to know like what to install for that person, or forget to install project right when they've had it on their old computers. One less thing you have to think about.
Well, and I like it. It forces you to put your stuff if you're using it with Manage, right? It forces you to document it properly there, and then you have it deploy to the system versus installing it and then having to document it or pull it from Automate or whatever you're doing your software inventory. Makes it easier to have that single source of truth.
Right. The way we do it, when we bill our customers, like most MSPs, they get these like lump sum items, where we bill like, this is how much we're charging you per user, and there's how much we charge per site and things like that. But we want cost control on our agreements. So we'll add non-billable products to the ConnectWise agreement, where we don't actually bill them for it, but we include the cost on it. And even if the addition on there is not billable, Emmy is still smart enough to pick that up and know, oh, that's something that needs to be installed. So it's not going to clutter up your invoice by adding those line items. But what it does do is make your cost tracking in those reports inside of Manage more accurate.
I love that. It's fantastic.
So it's true top down, right? It's like, are you delivering what you sold the person? Yes, it's literally from there. So your sales guy lands that new agreement, or he sells this new, sock seam, whatever it is, and it needs to get deployed. Well, inside of Emmy, as long as you've got a recurring schedule set up to do that maintenance, it'll just happen on Thursday when maintenance runs for them.
Nice.
That's the idea. And of course, we talked about QuickBooks at length, right? But this is one of those things where you would need to target it to usually the accounting group. You don't want to install that for every person, right? So you just say, okay, well, if they're in that group, they're going to get it, kind of thing.
So is this coming from, where is it getting connected to Azure AD? Is that an integration with ImmyBot, or how is it getting that data?
So from the moment you log into ImmyBot, it asks you to consent. There's 3 levels of consent that you can up from. So one, it's just going to ask about you. So it'll say, hey, can we get your specific information? So when you first set up a computer, if you select yourself, it'll be able to grab your license details. Then you can move it up and say, well, I'm okay with you accessing everyone in my tenant. So you'd move the consent up to that, and we can pull everyone inside of yours. Then if you go to the 3rd tier, you'd create the app registration in your tenant, assuming you're like a CSP, right? You set that up, and then Emmy will be able to then pull all of the users and all of your customers' users' licenses in.
Very nice.
Yeah. We talked about, do I need to migrate applications from an old computer? Well, one of the things we implemented recently was this ability to assign software, what I call assignable software. Here's software we found on the computer. Say this is the guy's old computer. He's been working for this company forever, and he just knows you're not going to remember all of his stuff. And he's just waiting to get the computer to open a ticket and just complain, right? So you go in, you select his old computer, and Emmy goes, well, hey, look, I found all the stuff on his old computer, and it's not deployed to them. Would you like to make these rules now? So you could just assign all that software to his person. And then when you run Emmy on his new computer, it just installs all of that stuff.
And just to be clear, it's not copying their old data. It's saying you have Reader DC installed. We're going to install Reader DC.
Right. And we're not taking like the naive, just dumping the display names out of the registry, because Emmy has these really fancy detection methods with regex. We clean up those names, we sanitize them, we match them to known packages. And then we say, oh, yep, we recognize this. We know how to install it, be it through Ninite or through Chocolatey, or maybe it's just something we manage internally. And we have the ability to install that. So assign, boom, all that guy's going to get all that stuff. We're moving this up a level into the tenant. So imagine you just got a new customer and they've got a whole bunch of the software that Emmy knows how to install in their network already. Imagine being able to just assign whatever their line of business application is to everyone or to a specific group at the tenant level, because it knows, well, hey, 27 of the 30 computers for this company have this software. Maybe you should assign that to that whole company. So when you set up that first computer for them, you didn't forget that thing that everyone needs. Nice. Y'all still have me? Oh man. Well, hopefully everybody else can hear me.
Yeah, you're the important one here. So
yeah. All right. Well, that's all I had in terms of, so Death by PowerPoint's over. What we could do is I could show you guys what we're working on today, what we're working on next.
And I want to give a quick shout out to my bandwidth, and of course this is like the week before I return to my office, but I want to give a quick shout out to John Schultz of Binnacle, who actually just signed up right now. He sent a screenshot in one of our chats. So,
nice.
Yeah, so show him what he's getting, man.
All right, so here's what's going to happen, and this is new. We haven't released this yet, but this should go out by Friday. The majority of this exists. I'll point out the new part. So let's say you just took your computer out of the box. Everybody's seen this screen, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to emulate the process.
You're not sharing right now.
Oh, am I not? Oh, I blew it. Hold on. Where's my share button? Here it is. Share screen, and go.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So you have your new computer. You just took it out of the box. here's what's going to happen. You're going to go into Emmy and you're going to create, you're just going to get any USB stick, doesn't matter. You don't have to wipe it. You're just going to put a file on that USB. All right. So right here, I've got this screen here, and this is the new stuff, right? You come in and these are all the things that we are suggesting you may want to deploy. I've gone ahead and just approved all of them, but here's like a quick list. So Dell command, that'll actually apply BIOS updates. I can thank Dimitri again for that. Lenovo system updates, if it's a Lenovo computer, net extender for a client, Cisco, Umbrella. If you guys are using OpenDNS, we can even configure OneDrive known folder move for you, set the time zone, Adobe Reader. We've got all the apps for business, enterprise, all that stuff filtered appropriately. Setting the computer name, enforcing BitLocker, installing ConnectWise control, setting a local admin password, configuring wireless, installing Teams, updating to the latest feature update for Windows 10, applying the latest Windows monthly cumulative update, also setting Edge Chromium, which this one's neat because this will actually change the default search provider from Bing to Google. You're welcome. We do that by default.
Are you saying you don't Bing? I Bing all the time.
I mean, there are certain things I look for that Bing is better for finding, but we're not going to go into that right now. So, so projects and Visio, we talked about that stuff, right? And this is just a small subset of our global repository. These are just the most common things that you should be doing, right? So,
what's the, do you know the total number? Just now, I'm curious.
Christ, I mean, it grows every day. I mean, a few hundred probably. Now that I've figured out a consistent way to do Autodesk stuff, you're going to start seeing all kinds of Autodesk stuff get dumped in very soon. But and a lot of it's already there.
I keep seeing in my Discord chats, the minute you said Autodesk, they got more excited about Autodesk than they did about QuickBooks, which was surprising to me.
Well, it's a big deal. Well, QuickBooks is dying, and there's an online option. Autodesk, I mean, what are you going to do? Tell an engineer to go remote into some computer and attempt to work on a 200 gig CAD file? No, they're going to have a local machine. You're going to forever be installing Autodesks on local machines. Nice. So here's what I'm going to do. So I had downloaded the ISO version of, actually that was the provisioning package version, the ISO version of this guy. And I'm only doing the ISO just because when you're doing a virtual machine, it's hard to like emulate a USB removal device. But anyway, it all works the same. But yeah, conceptually, you're putting this USB into here, and then all of those things that I just showed you from the previous screen are going to apply. And it makes this really cool, when you see it, you get it, but it makes this cool checklist of sorts where it's like green check as soon as something's done. So if there's a problem with anything, it'll show up in red and you say, okay, let me go address this or figure out, what's missing or whatever the deal is. So here I'm downloading this ISO here. I'm going to mount that to my virtual machine like so. Let's get to my... There we go.
There's John. He had me at Autodesk.
Right. All right. So here it goes.
Real quick, because we got both question and answer here. I just want to get your validation on it. Chris Thomas asking, we started out provisioning P package files, which allegedly can set up Wi-Fi, but will bomb out if the device does not have Wi-Fi. Does it work around the bug? And yeah. There you go.
I finally fixed it. Yes, I had to embed the Wi-Fi setup as a PowerShell script. I had the exact same problem forever. It was embarrassing.
And that was I remember you working through that in the in MSP Geek, having that conversation, right?
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot because it's been one of those bugs that like everybody had, but I think everyone found the workaround for it, which was just to have two provisioning packages on the on the thing, but that's stupid, right? So yeah, we made a lot of improvements to this process. So now this can install actually on an offline computer completely. So you're at that screen. They're not forcing you from the out-of-box experience to, and this is it, by the way. They're not forcing you to connect it to Wi-Fi, but it'll bring you to this screen, and then it'll say like no network found. As soon as you connect it, boom, it registers, and then it's associated, and then it pops up in Emmy now. That was a huge, and we're embedding the MSI inside of the PPKG instead of trying to download it real time like we used to be doing. So major improvements to that process in the last month or so. All right, so the machine is ready. It's already kicked off the session, as we call it. You got to think of a maintenance session, the conceptual equivalent of doing like GP update / force, right? It's basically, hey, what is the desired state of software? And it's looking at all the rules that got created that says, yeah, this should be installed for, all computers or some computers or this particular person. And then what it does is it says, all right, well, now that I know what the state of all the software should be. Let me go and see what the state of the software is. And then it queues up tasks based on what it finds. So it saw the Emmy agent was already there and it was up to date. So it's not going to do anything. It saw that Windows 10 is on the 2009, which is what we had deployed to it. So it's not going to do anything. But then it discovered that Adobe Reader was not found. So it's queuing up an install task and it's going to install this version and then patch it to the latest version because Reader does this like .msp patch file thing.
So we got two things going on here. We have our favorite Kung Fu master asking, wait, so you mean that the Emmy agent is now included in the provisioning package?
Yes.
And then we have our favorite sommelier saying, asking for on-demand stuff. Show them the M360, the Microsoft MVP asking for the Microsoft 365 stuff. What a surprise!
Yeah, shocker. So I think what Kelvin's probably talking about, and this is more advanced functionality that not a ton of people are probably going to use out of the gate, but I'll talk about it. So what if you're trying to deploy something not to a computer? What if you're trying to enforce that, I don't know, Exchange Unified Audit Log is turned on with all of your tenants, for example? So would you, or in the one, I stole a script from Kelvin. He has this check Azure secured defaults. Ooh, and this is my demo environment. I don't have any of my customers linked.
I think you're pronouncing Kevin wrong.
I'm sorry, Kelvin. I'm sorry. No. Going too fast.
Just gotta give him shit. It's all right, man.
So what's happening here is instead of it filtering computers, it's now filtering your customers. Now I only have one customer in this demo environment here, but in a normal environment, it would show all of the customers that you've linked in from CSP. And when you run this script, it's going to go and check to see if that Azure secure default is turned on. And if it's not, you have the option of deploying it, which will then turn it on for all of your customers. So if you've done any scripting against the CSP APIs or with PowerShell, a lot of the first thing you end up doing is, okay, get me a list of all my customers, and you set up a for each loop for all of your customers, and then you swap the token for one for that specific customer, and then you do the work that you've got to do, and you got to loop over it every time. So everybody's script to do multi-tenant stuff looks like that. Well, Emmy eliminates all of that. You just get the meat of that function right into there, and Emmy's handling, oh yeah, here's what it's set to in all of them, and a nice tabular exportable to Excel interface. So the script here is really easy. We're leveraging that Emmy Azure auth header we talked about earlier, and that's intrinsically going to grab an auth header valid for the tenant that it's on, and then it just feeds that into invoke REST method to go and grab this secure defaults policy. And if it's running in enforce mode, when it detects that it's not enabled, it will then run this set. Anybody familiar with DSC will recognize what I stole from that. It'll run the set, and that's going to go and do the patch with the appropriate body that will enable it.
I love this. I have Kelvin saying, look how awesome that is, people. And then deploying my scripts with a pretty interface, because we all know the Kelvin interface is Visual Studio Code. So,
right.
You know, I agree. This is a much nicer interface.
What you don't see here is a app ID and an app secret hard coded into the script, which makes it shareable.
Yeah.
Right. That's the idea.
So how do you get around that at the client level? Is that because it still has to be passed down, is it not? Or how does that work?
So since Emmy's already integrated, we provided this wrapper function. This is a command line implemented in C# in the back end that handles all of that manipulation. We just return it to you real time what you need. So this eliminates that.
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and you could use the Azure AD module. You could talk to IT Glue with that. So we've got people that are grabbing, what are they grabbing now from all the machines? Like I had a guy the other day I was helping, grabbing all his, log into the Unify controller. I think this is another one of Kelvin's scripts. Log into Unify controller, dump all the device IDs out of it, and then push them all into IT Glue. To do that, we've got a function script that imports all of the IT Glue PowerShell modules in here. So yeah, this will just bring them all in. So you just run import Emmy IT Glue module. It imports all those functions, and then you can access them within the ImmyBot scripting engine.
Are these modules that you've created, that the users created? Who's making these?
This is the official IT Glue module from GitHub, flattened down into a single script. our Waller from in the Slack channel, I think helped get that all flattened down. And then I had to do a little bit of manipulation to get the functions accessible from the global context, but there wasn't anything that anybody couldn't have done themselves.
So can we create our own modules and put it up there?
You would have to you would have to do it like that for now. I'm working on a way to be able to actually import any modules that you want. The problem is within our scripting engine, we don't let you touch the file system. So we have to, what we're going to do is allow you to create an in-memory module from like a remote source. And so that allows it to exist in memory, but not necessarily write the module files to the disk.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, so let's check out our computer here. Where are we at? Right now it's installing apps for enterprise. All right, this one usually takes a little while, but we can check on the status right here. Right now I have all the logs expanded. Let me get to the bottom so we can see where it's at. So right here, it's running this script. If say there's a problem with the script that you wrote, you can hit Open Debugger right here. What's cool about this is it shows all of your properties, all their values. You can change the values right here, rerun the script. You can even press the F5 key. It's not going to refresh the browser. This is the same code editor from VS Code, Monaco code editor. So a lot of your same function hotkeys and IntelliSense stuff works, right? It's you bracket completion, things like that. It's really, really nice to work with. And I'm actively working on adding support for a language server on the back end, so it will function literally identically to VS Code when it comes to knowing what function names are available instead of just having the current context of the script. So yeah, I'm very proud of the scripting engine.
That is impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things we implemented recently is write progress support from the scripting engine. So it'll actually show up in here as a progress bar if you're doing like a long running task. So if you're like, one of the things that I've used this for is migrating someone to Azure AD. So let's say, you know, there's a multi-part process of prof whizzing and then joining to Azure AD and then resetting the Outlook so that the auto config kicks in, stuff like that. Those are all specific tasks that a lot of them require reboots in between. So it's nice to see like, okay, we're at this stage, at this percentage, and then, oh, okay, finish that stage so you can see where it's at, and you don't necessarily even have to read the logs. Those show up even in the collapsed view.
Is there alerting if you're not, you know, interactive with the web page at that moment? Is there any kind of alerting that goes on?
I mean, you'll see if you're watching just for a new computer setup here, the compliance checkboxes will pop up as soon as the actions are done. So you normally just let this rock, you know, in one of your tabs and view it. But we did actually add an alert center. I'm glad you asked that. That's one of the new features of version 43 here. Right now, there aren't any notifications, but we are bringing more notifications into this. So maybe a new computer showed up or, you know, some action is required, it'll now pop up, but we have it completely wired that in for everything that could potentially use it, but the framework is there now.
And you have another happy customer here. Actually, he's in MSP Geek. Said he was tagging and then realized you were on the webinar. Says he's been using it a while now. He loves it. Allows streamline so many things and got a chance to do before. And Kent, besides being a good friend of mine, I can and a partner of OIT. I can tell you he's not an easy customer. He knows exactly what he wants, and he will make it. He wants to make sure he gets it exactly his way. So to impress him is not an easy task.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was using it for Veeam upgrades, which is a really, really long script that requires a lot of prerequisites and stuff like that. And so we've been using Veeam to upgrade our Veeam, our Veeam servers, which is nice. And so what you would do with that is you would essentially go, you're going to deploy Veeam. You just select that out of this list, and maybe it already is on a bunch of computers. You can create a filter script here, which I don't think I have one in here for it, but we have one called computers or servers with Veeam, and we have this like filter syntax, which is all PowerShell that just looks, okay, does the computer have this software? Yes. Okay, cool. And then it'll show the list of computers on the right. So you deploy it to machines that need it, or you could just use this update if found mechanism.
So I don't want to make it sound all unicorns and rainbows. I definitely, even though I'm an Emmy fan, I don't want to be a fanboy. What can't it do? What are the limitations now? So, you know, people don't go into here thinking, oh, it's going to wash my car and, you know, make me toast in the morning. Although Kelvin, I'm waiting for that blog, you know, automated toast.
Right.
So,
So we don't do monitoring and alerting. That's the big piece that if you're saying, oh, this could replace my RMM, that's not where we are. You can remote into computers if you have Screen Connect, but we haven't integrated our own remote control into it yet. So if Screen Connect is on the machine, you can click into it, and there's going to be an extra tab here that says, jump into remote session, which is kind of nice. But yeah, the big thing is monitoring and alerting. Right now, everything is very schedule based in terms of how the maintenance is going to get done, and that was by design. I really wanted our end users to know, hey, Thursday is the day that we do maintenance, and they get that email and they know like when it's going to happen. A lot of the stuff that I was trying to automate. Oh, an alert happened. It's going to fire off an auto fix script. Oh shit, it rebooted the computer. And I didn't want that, but to really round out the offering, I think that would be the
all right. So I got an easy question and I got a hard question. Of course, Kelvin's giving the hard question. We'll start with the easy one first. What about integrations outside of ConnectWise? So if they're using Datto, they're using Kaseya, Sean. If they're using something else, Synchro, where are you at there?
So what we're going to do very soon is add a new generic mappings, which will allow you to create a cross-tenant policy to deploy your Datto RMM agent or deploy your Kaseya or whatever to the appropriate tenant, because most of those installers require some sort of ID, right, to get it put into the right spot to map it. So by adding a mapping for those things, even though they don't allow us to run scripts or do some of the fancy things that we can do with the ConnectWise products, we could still make your life a little bit easier to make sure that when we deploy that Kaseya agent, it goes into the right location at within Kaseya without you having to manually move it over. So that's coming hopefully soon.
And we have Kelvin here asking the hard question, and realize we only have 8 minutes left. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So the short version, and Darren's always available on Geek and everywhere else. So it's not like you can't reach him if you have more questions. But versus Intune, what can it do versus Intune? Where is Intune a better fit? Where is Emmy a better fit?
So Intune can do autopilot. So that's that idea. You take the machine out of the box, the end user literally does nothing, and boom, it's getting the software installed and stuff like that. What you would have to do with Emmy today is send that end user a USB with the Emmy package on it that's keyed to them. So when they insert it into the machine, it kicks off. I've played around with perhaps emulating MDM protocols to get a similar sort of vibe, because autopilot and Intune are technically two different things. So why not the idea being point autopilot to Emmy, and then maybe Emmy could then join it to Intune. But that's a big undertaking. So if you want that like hands-free out-of-box experience, Intune will give you that. But what most people who are using Emmy do with Intune is just have Intune install the Emmy agent and then have Emmy install all the software and let Intune do. Oh, and Intune is also better at enforcing settings like group policy sort of settings, screen lock sort of stuff. We've got some of that in Emmy, but I would say Intune is better at that.
So Drew, he already answered your question as I brought it up. Use autopilot to install Emmy, and
only well, you could put what's more specifically, because you have to have an Intune license. So autopilot by itself can't install Emmy. Autopilot have to point to Intune and roll it in Intune, and then Intune would install Emmy. So you can't because autopilot is technically free, Intune is not.
Yeah, and we have a whole video on using autopilot and Intune. Simon will put it in the chat if you guys want to watch that. We did that with Ernest actually a year ago at this point. We should probably do a refresher one on that. And then Matt Rose actually asking a good co-managed question. Could this be shared with an on-site team if we're doing co-managed?
Yes, actually, yes. And we do that a lot with our own customers. Literally, all you have to do is enable that third tier of Azure, and then it will sync in all of your customers' people into this list. And then you just add them as a user, and then they single sign on right into it. And then they only see their computers, and everything is scoped just to them. So when they see this deployment screen, cross-tenant doesn't exist. It's pre-selected to their tenant or individual. They don't have like a tenant drop down naturally, right? So anytime there would be a tenant selector, it disappears. So yes.
I mean, so now we're not even talking about making your life easier, saving you money. One of the benefits of co-manage is now you're leveraging your tools, your resources, giving it to other internal IT departments and letting them have access to it. But now you're generating additional revenue based on your tools, which is kind of the holy grail when it comes to this. That's pretty awesome.
Right. And they can even remote into the computers. It makes it easier, in my opinion, to do than sharing your Screen Connect instance, because when you let them remote into the computer from Emmy, you don't have to do any crazy security stuff within Screen Connect, so they can use SSO. They're just SSOing into Emmy and then leveraging Emmy's integration with Control to get into the machines.
And that's, I mean, I know I'm not gonna, I know you're not all big on pomp and circumstance, and you really hate the compliment stuff, but I'll say it for you. You said at the very beginning, that's the big difference. A lot of these vendors, and I'm a vendor that came from the MSP space, so I completely get it, and I've been guilty of this at times. A lot of the vendors from the MSP space kind of get separated from what it is MSP life, right? What it is to have these needs, to have real world repercussions, good, bad, or otherwise, consequences as to your actions and the stuff you deploy. And it's obvious you've taken those considerations when developing this product. It is really an MSP's tool.
It's almost
Which I
like we
love.
use it ourselves.
Right? Oh, surprising. Yeah. I love it.
So
So what
yeah.
else we got? We're 4 minutes left. Drew saying in MSP Geek, he's such an Emmy shill
I
sometimes.
love him. I love Drew.
Calling out for sometimes, yeah.
So
But you
like
have dynamics, man.
So yeah, little stuff I keep tweaking here and there. Like one of the big things that we just got done is being able to set default browsers. So that's always been a pain because Windows 10 sort of locks you out of that, right? They have this hash that you have to calculate, and it's a real pain. So now when you go to deploy things like Chrome, you could actually deploy Chrome and set it as the default browser right here. And you could do the same with Firefox. And the same with like Adobe Reader. So here we just added this option to all the browsers this week. And then if you're deploying a Reader, we've got to make it the default PDF handler. All those are protected by that what they call user choice hash. And we can actually override that user choice hash from the system context instead of having to run a utility as the user, which is what all of the off-the-shelf stuff like the set FTA tool and all those other scripts out there that can do this, they need to be run as the end user. If the user's not logged in, you can't do it. We can do it from the system context regardless of whether or not the user's logged into the machine.
Awesome. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I know Darren wants to get back to MSP Geek, so he can start going back into the community. So Darren, what's next for you, man? What are we going to see coming soon with Emmy?
Man, I'm really excited to continue developing the branch cache stuff. Getting that peer distribution stuff right is going to be huge. So I'm very excited about that. Real time script results is going to be big. That's all like really technical, I guess. I'm very excited to start just rounding out the offering make a more native feel to things like Windows updates. We deploy updates as like software, but really that needs to be handled, specifically within Emmy, and just make it more user friendly. Out of the box, I want people to just immediately find value without having to schedule a call with me for an hour and set things up, and that's where I'm going.
I love that, and that's absolutely impressive. I'll take it from Chris Thomas saying, "Now that's impressive." If you're not impressed by Emmy so far, I'd question if you have a pulse. Go check out Emmy.bot, which I'm a big fan of short domain names. I love it. His email's there. He's on MSP Geek. He's everywhere. Go hit him up. He'd be happy to show you around and show you what's going on. Darren, thank you so much for your time today, dude. I absolutely appreciate you.
Thank you. This was awesome.
All right. So we do have a bunch of upcoming events. Simon, you want to bring them up? Tell us what's going on?
Yeah, perfect. So we do have a couple of upcoming events coming up this week. Tomorrow we have Automagical Documentation in Hoodoo with Luke Whitelock. That'll be our 4th technical deficit episode. That'll be with Luke Whitelock and Ray Orsini, where they'll be going over scripts, Hoodoo scripts, to making your experience a little bit more magical, a little bit better. On 6/9, we actually have a partner first webinar featuring Eureka Process. This will be on growing your team. It'll be the ultimate screening and hiring process. They'll be giving away their automated screening process, which will save you hours each week. So make sure that you tune in for that. As on June 16th and June 17th, we'll be at ASCII the Success Summit in Ohio. So if you guys are around, make sure that you meet us over there. Sean will be going from our team. Make sure that you give him a hard time over there, and that you meet with him. And then on 6/24, we actually have our Tech Bar podcast with Tom Lawrence of Lawrence Systems. So make sure to tune in for that as well.
Simon, we have a question for you. Where is your accent from?
I am from Colombia, and I'm raised in Miami, so it's a bit of a Colombian and Miami accent.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this latest episode of OIT Partner First. Very excited to have you guys here. Join us later this week where we're doing, like he said, I'll be with Luke and we'll be doing some awesome stuff with Hoodoo. We'll be doing magic. Till next time, have an awesome rest of your week. Take care, fam.